Well, there you go. That marks the final engagement of the Indian Prime Minister's tour of the United States. The Prime Minister has just addressed the diaspora at the Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. And like he said, he's headed to the airport to go now to Africa, specifically to Egypt, where he will meet the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah El-Sisi. This will be his first visit or tour to Egypt or in the northeast African nation. And some of the things that, or issues that the Prime Minister, has addressed at the Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. I'll just go through a few of some of the pointers that he made to the diaspora at the Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. He says that President Biden has always tried to take the U.S.-India partnership to another level, and that's why he is an experienced politician. The Prime Minister also says the partnership is a new journey of convergence on global strategic issues of our cooperation for Make in India, Make for the World. The Prime Minister says that the decision by General Electric to manufacture fighter jets or fighter planes in India will prove to be a milestone for India's defense sector. The manner in which India has seen a digital revolution in the past few years is unprecedented. These are some of the pointers that the Prime Minister did make during his speech before the Indian diaspora who had converged at the Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. Let's talk more about this specific meeting of the Indian diaspora. And joining us now is our diplomatic correspondent, Sidhant Sibol, who is at the Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. Sidhant Sibol, the mini India, as Modi is calling it, was enthusiastic about this meeting. Did the speech by the Prime Minister at the Ronald Reagan Center meet their expectations?
I'm joined by members of the Indian diaspora here. Just a short while ago, the Indian Prime Minister concluded his address, and with this he concluded his US visit as well. But before I speak, let the members of the diaspora speak as to what they think. So, ma'am, if you can talk about the address made by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, how do you see the speech made by the Prime Minister?
You want me to speak in English?
Yes, ma'am, English.
Phenomenal, outstanding, historic moment. Prime Minister Modi ji has created the best relationship between India and America. And the best part is that he has said this is just the beginning. He has brought hope to millions, not only in India, America, but also all over the world. Because when two major democracies come together, everybody gets the success. So this is outstanding. And he included women, entrepreneurship, innovation, culture, and trust. So this has been just phenomenal. We are so grateful for his coming here. And we are grateful for America and President Biden and Mrs. Biden for rolling out the red carpet treatment. As an American citizen, we are delighted. Thank you.
Delighted is the word, essentially rolling out the red carpet. You have aptly summed up, ma'am. Sir, coming to you, how do you see the Indian Prime Minister's address here at the Ronald Reagan Center?
The only one thing I can say, and that's the top and bottom. Modi has changed the mind of every single person, not only Indian, not only NRIs, even I feel that Americans are those who are listening this lecture of the Modi ji. Everybody is completely changed and they are having phenomenal thoughts for our India.
Last word, sir, if you can come here and talk to us about the Prime Minister's address. How do you see the Prime Minister's address? Can you come closer, sir?
Yeah. So, in terms of address, in fact, we came from California all the way, flying 5 hours to hear Modi ji live. And frankly, this 30 minutes of his address is all worth it. This makes the whole journey much interesting. Modi has brought the whole pride in the Indian community. It's not just, you feel proud to be Indian. Pehle sharam aati thi. Now, like, you feel like we are. And so, in these 3 days, he achieved so much, from business perspective, from politics and whole diplomacy. And they announced here that they made all this, even H1s and, diplomatic relationship, consulate here, consulates in India. This whole thing just made so much of impact on Indian Americans here.
Really great speaking the message here by members of the Indian diaspora. I'm standing at the heart and epicenter of the Indian Prime Minister's last major event here in Washington as he leaves for Cairo. And the message is clear. In fact, during his address, he summed up essentially what are the key outcomes, whether it is the opening up of consulates, the Indian consulates in Seattle and other cities, or American consulates in Ahmedabad and in Bangalore, or essentially space collaboration on defense. The Indian Prime Minister specifically mentioned about the GE deal and as to how it helps establish the trust between the two countries. So all in all, this was a milestone visit in every sense possible. This was a visit that shapes the India-US relationship, and this was a visit that will be remembered in history for giving a direction to a relationship which has not only buried the hesitations of history, but has moved towards a long-standing partnership and trust.
Well, that is our diplomatic correspondent, Sidhant Sibol, who is at the Ronald Reagan Center in Washington, D.C. And he has also spoken to the diaspora, where the Indian Prime Minister did address the diaspora, calling them the mini India in America. Let's now cross over to our correspondent, Molly Gambhir, who is at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Molly Gambhir did attend the speech made by the Prime Minister, or the Indian Prime Minister, at the U.S. Strategic Partnership Forum. And we do understand that during that speech, the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and also the chairman of Emeritus Cisco, his name is John Chambers, flanked the Prime Minister, or the Indian Prime Minister, during this Strategic Partnership Forum. Molly Gambhir, the U.S. Secretary of State did say before the Indian Prime Minister made his speech that Indian partnership is more dynamic it has ever been. He also urged the Indian Prime Minister to keep it up and aim higher. Did the business community who are listening to the Indian Prime Minister's speech, did it meet their expectations?
Eric, the expectations, of course, had been running high, given that this is the Indian Prime Minister's maiden state visit to the United States, which has had several aspects, and the underlying theme that has been of boosting the India-US cooperation on multiple levels, be it defense cooperation, be it sharing of technology, space, climate change, and building the business ties, the business-to-business ties, and forging closer people-to-people ties as well. And specifically about the business community, the Indian Prime Minister has, of course, heavily engaged with the business leaders, both in New York, which was the first leg of his visit here in the United States, and also in Washington, D.C. We saw him engaging with leading American CEOs. We saw him also interacting with the CEOs of Amazon, Google, and the larger message that has been sent out by India is of its position on the global map as a lucrative destination. The business leaders have been given a better sense of where India stands vis-a-vis its potential as a growing market, which America is very well aware of, and which is why it is looking at India as a reliable partner as well. So there are multiple reasons why India and the United States are coming closer together, and one of them is this common concern, a shared interest when it comes to closer ties in the business space. And also the Indian Prime Minister recognizing earlier in the day how he was meeting CEOs of a wide range of businesses, well established and also startups, and how India has been pushing for the Make in India scheme, and this visit has been a major a catalyst for that as well, given the number of engagements that the Indian Prime Minister has had with the business community here. And, right here at the Kennedy Center, we saw the Indian Prime Minister arriving, and before his arrival, the business delegates who was streaming in as well. In fact, we earlier also spoke to one of the attendees of the luncheon who was present during the luncheon that was hosted by the Vice President Kamala Harris and the Secretary of State Antony Blinken, where he talked about the personal chemistry between the Indian Prime Minister and the US President Joe Biden. Remember, during the state dinner as well, we saw some candid moments between the two leaders, and that's also a very important part of the optics that have been at full display as well. And the Indian Prime Minister talking about the effortless chemistry in the ties between the two sides, and the labels that have been used by the two leaders to describe the potential, the American president calling it the relationship that will define the 21st century, that the two countries are standing at a transformative moment, that this is among the most consequential relationships. That only tells you about the importance that America is attaching to India as a reliable partner, and how India is also looking at the United States as a trustworthy partner, and how this visit, as it culminates, is only the beginning of a new chapter.